We are jumping in here to in the kitchen with Catchycactus. We're going to be cooking some homemade pizzas today, which a lot of people know how to make. It's not something too crazy, but as this is only our second episode, I wanted it to kind of be some basic stuff, And I've been really into making my own dough lately with this easy no yeast dough recipe that I found. It's pretty standard stuff, but I always had to use yeast, and it was such a pain. Now without it, I'm just like it's like newfound religion. I'm like dough, everything with dough, and I just happen to have like perfect vegetables for pizza, so it just all came together. That's what I'm gonna do today. And I'm gonna start with the dough. Last time I didn't show you making the dough. I have a nice kind of baking bowl here. It's a nice deep one. So we're gonna be sorry, that was loud. I'll try to be quiet with these bowls, not like smash them into the table. Gently place them. And so it's pretty standard stuff. I'm going to be making about 2 cups of flour. First thing I'm going to be doing. 1 cup. You don't really need to see the flour going. It's not the most exciting thing in the world. It's pretty standard stuff. And then it's going to be about 2/3 a cup water. I could use a liquid measuring cup, but I'm just going to use a dry one. And just eyeball it. Because I'm all about the eyeballing of things like this. I'm not really into like the difficulty of measuring exactly and things of that nature. So hopefully you can hear me if the music's not too loud. It's just kind of quiet. If music's an issue, let me know as soon as possible. And then lastly, we've got some baking. This is baking soda. Now, generally they ask for baking powder, but I think this works fine. I didn't want to have to buy baking powder, so I had baking soda. I think you just don't put in salt, and then you just use about half as much as you do use baking powder. So I'm going to use about a teaspoon. About a teaspoon of baking soda here. Then I'm going to mix it all together. And I gotta find my wooden spoon. I don't know where that went to. Okay, wooden spoon is apparently not with us, so I'm just going to be using a fork. Not ideal, but in a pinch, it'll work. Oh yeah, I forgot. Lastly, we need about a tablespoon of oil, and I'm just gonna pretty much eyeball this as well. Alright, there we go, of olive oil. We're making homemade pizza. Ultimate terrio? I hope I'm getting that right. I think I said that before. And so when you're eyeballing things like this, you just kind of have to have like a certain confidence in your dough. And as you can see, I'm mixing it up. It needs more water. I put in not enough water, obviously. So I'm gonna take a little more water and just pour it in. And that's the kind of thing with dough that I'm starting to realize, and I think most people make it realize, that you can pretty easily just be like, oh, I need more of this, and then you can counteract like, oh, it's too sticky, it's too watery, too wet. Put in a little more flour. Needs maybe a little more oil, a little more water. You can keep going. It's never really a big deal if you keep it up. Ultimate Rio. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of far away from me, so it's a little bit hard for me to read. I do apologize for butchering that pretty hard. Still needs more water. And how does it sound, man? Does it sound good overall? Is it is the music too loud? Is my voice too loud? Is it not loud enough? Etc. And I'm gonna pour in a little bit more, and I think we're gonna be good to start kneading this dough. So as you can see right now, the dough is about where we want it, so I'm going to flour up my hands and then go to town on kneading this dough. And the kneading is where you can really tell what you need more so. When you're kneading the dough, you can kind of be like, okay, this is too sticky, sticking my hands a little bit too much. You need to throw in a little more flour, or it's just like even if it's too sticky, if it's like not too wet but too sticky, you can be like, okay, I need more oil, things of that nature. The one thing that you kind of need to be careful with baking soda, it's really hard to tell, like, oh, this needs more baking soda. That's not really going to happen. So that's why I kind of use a measuring spoon to get that. My hands, I cleaned them before we started, so don't worry. Normally I'd be like, this is the time to clean our hands, but I cleaned them before, so. Sounds a bit wonky. I don't know, maybe I just have a wonky voice, man. I don't know, I am in a kitchen, it's kind of open, spacious, maybe that's why it's echoey. I do apologize, I'm not using like the best microphone in the world right now. I'm using just my built-in one, which usually I have a different one, but it's kind of difficult to maneuver with this because I'm kind of moving my laptop around, things of that nature. So as you can see, our dough, it's looking pretty good overall. Maybe you use a little more flour, take a little bit more flour, throw it in, and I think you use a little more oil too. So I throw a little more oil in as well. I actually flex the dough flying all over my laptop, so that's probably not the most ideal thing in the world. But that's okay. We'll put a little more oil into this as well. Yeah, I mean, is it okay? Is it like really terrible that you are sick of listening to it, or is it gonna be okay for, the episode in the kitchen, in your personal opinion? I think a little bit more flour, we're gonna be good to go here. And yeah, I think this is in a pretty good spot right now, the dough. And we're actually just gonna put this in the fridge for now, and then come back to it a little later, roll it out into its proper pizza formation. So yeah, just gonna throw this in the fridge. The fridge is a little full right now, but we can find a little spot for it. Now I'm gonna wash some of this dough off my hands, because they're all kind of sticky. I'll be back momentarily. Sure, I mean, I can put out whatever song you want. Right now I've just got some beach house going, so I can't even hear the music, honestly. So I was just doing it, putting it on there, quiet music for when I'm kind of doing something else, so you don't get bored, but anything you want in particular I can throw on. But real quick, I'm going to get into some chopping. I'm going to chop up some veggies, so I'm going to show you the cutting board. I'm going to get low here like I did last time. We're going to be chopping up some onion, some tomato, green pepper, black olives, and pineapple. This is a veggie heavy pizza. This is a full-on veggie, and I guess the pineapple is fruit, but primarily a veggie pizza. So I'm going to be going into the way I cut each of these individual things. Pretty nice chef's knife, in case you're wondering about cutlery and things like that. Generally that's what we use, and I can throw that on a little bit later. Right now I'm just going to focus on chopping up these veggies, but yeah, I can throw that on for you in just a little bit. But I'm going to show you this is half an onion. Already, I put it in a plastic bag because I was using it before. So now I'm going to show you kind of my technique for cutting half an onion. It's not like the only technique, it's not even the best technique, but this is just the one I use. So I put it down, flat side down like this. I hold it, and just real thinly slice pieces out. And I don't need a ton. I don't even need a whole half of an onion. I'm going to use about a quarter of an onion here. So now I've got strands, it looks like this basically. You can see it's pretty thin, pretty nice little cut there. I just stack them on top of each other, hold them in place, and then cut along, their vertical axis. And so then you're left with still kind of long, but in horizontal terms, or vertical terms actually. And then I just from there, just kind of pivot, cut around, dice them up into nice little pieces. And, for a pizza, you don't really want these giant chunks of onions, so getting them nice and small, diced, even maybe minced, It's kind of where you want it. So I'm going to grab a little bowl to put all this in, all the veggies. I'm going to actually rinse out this bowl a bit. And now we've got our onions in the bowl. We're going to move on to our tomatoes. And these are Roma tomatoes, in case you're wondering. Just so you know, I can't really see chat. I can kind of dip down every now and then. I will be using pre-made sauce. I'm not using homemade sauce just because right now I don't really have the means to make it. I don't really have a food processor with me. So it'd be very difficult for me to make my own pizza sauce. But yeah, so I'm going to be using just like, I think it's Bertolli pizza sauce. And if you can see, this tomato, this was a Roma originally, and this was like a quarter of the Roma. I cut out the core because the core is really watery. And for pizza, you don't really want it to be watery. You just want these like firm little pieces, you know, around the edge. So I didn't really explain last time how I did this, but I'll show it now. You want, you know, ideally, you're like, look at this, and you're like, oh, I want to put the flat side down. That's what you kind of think when you're cooking a lot of the time, or when you're cutting. But actually, you want the round part down. So you put the round part down like this, just because your knife will slip really hard off this. It's really hard to get a good cut on a tomato on the skin. So you get this juicy little inside part. It's really easy to cut. You just cut vertically into these thin strands. Then you got a strand that looks like this about. And then you just, like I did basically with the onion, stack them up next to each other and then cut horizontally along them. Now I've got good pieces, or a good, you know, amount of diced tomato there. And this is just the bottom part. And I kind of just pivot cut into smaller pieces, throw it in with the rest. Now we're putting this in our glass jar as well, or our glass bowl. So as you can see right here, this is what it's starting to look like. Got quite a few veggies going. And I'm going to preheat the oven now. I didn't do that earlier. Preheat it to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And now I'm going for the green pepper. And I cut off the top already. I actually used this top for something else earlier, but the core is still in it. So you want to core your green pepper. It's pretty easy. Just reach in, grab out the core. I'm going to go throw that out. And now you have all these kind of like chunks that were connected to the core, and you can kind of just take these out by hand, and then throw those out as well. Kind of get some of the seeds out of it as well. And then you see, this is what it looks like. You don't have all this stuff, and I'm going to throw this stuff out. And I'm going to scrape some of these seeds just kind of out the way. And I'm going to show you how I personally cut a green pepper. It's pretty simple. And you see these kind of like, I don't know what they're called, bumps in the inside, I want to call them. I cut along those. And I basically cut mine immediately in half, and then kind of just along those. So you're left with pieces about this size. And then what I do with these pieces is I kind of just cut them vertically into these kind of thin strands. It really depends on how big the piece is, how many times you cut it. Bigger ones you can do like 4 times, smaller ones you can even do just 1 cut. So that one was a 3. This one's probably going to be a 2 cutter, yeah. And then, like I did with the onion and the tomato, you kind of just stack them up like this, hold them in place, and then just go down, cutting. And then once you get to the end, they kind of fall apart, the stack, I mean, and it doesn't really matter. You can kind of just clump it up, pivot cut it around. It doesn't have to be exact, like, you know, the size of this. We're just making a little homemade pizza. We're not cooking for Gordon Ramsay's personal restaurant or something of that nature. So it doesn't really matter if a few are a little bit bigger than the others. You just kind of want to eyeball it and look at them. Make sure that none are just like massive. And as long as none are massive, you should be good. And last time I kind of went over a lot of the basic cutlery techniques. So I don't really think I need to do that again. Hopefully, if you missed it last time, you can look in the highlights section of the Twitch page or go to my YouTube account and check it out there. But now I'm going to save the rest of this onion, the rest of this green pepper, as we don't really need it. We don't need an absolutely massive ton of vegetables for these pizzas. Now I'm going to open up these pineapple and these black olives. first I gotta find my can opener. Right now I'll take it. Yeah, I know I would have gotten points for making pizza sauce, but unfortunately it's ridiculously hard to make pizza sauce when you're on the food processor. It's just not really feasible. But hey, I did make my own dough. Made my own skins. That's gotta be worth something. And now, opening up this pineapple. And I'm gonna pour out this this juice, but I'm gonna pour it in a cup because I personally really like pineapple juice. You can use it for a number of things, so I'm gonna be not wasting it. I'm just gonna be pouring it into a glass. You can see here. And ideally as well, I'd have like a giant, you know, pineapple to cut up. Fresh pineapple. Unfortunately, I'm using canned because I don't have a giant pineapple, and I didn't really feel like paying the money to get one, or dealing with the hassle. So just have canned pineapple here. I'm gonna be taking these, and as you can see, they're kind of big chunks. That's what they came in the can. So I'm just gonna be kind of cutting these into smaller pieces here. And actually, I'm not even gonna take the time to really exactly measure this because it doesn't really matter on a pizza top, really, as long as they don't get mashed. Right now, they're kind of trying to pick some outliers out. Cut them into smaller pieces. I think most of these are pretty good. Yeah, I think this is pretty good. And I'll kind of leave these on the board. And now comes the olives. And cutting olives is can be tricky. I'm going to show you a little technique I use on black olives because once I can pour out the juice. Alright, and now the thing about black olives is that they will roll around if you just try to cut them like that on your cutting board. It becomes an issue. So I'll show you a little technique I've actually developed to stop that. I kind of just do it like I'm crushing garlic actually. I just take my knife and kind of crush them up. And if you're going to be slicing them anyway, it doesn't matter. Now that they're squished, they're not actually going to roll around. And you can kind of just go to town on them. Just pivot cut these, into submission. And you might get a piece or two that's kind of like overly crushed, something like that, but overall it's really not a big deal. Alright, now we're just going to be taking these. I'm going to mix in the black olives with the veggies, but not the pineapple. Alright, and now we're pretty much done chopping up our stuff. Vegetables in the fridge, I would say I try to use them within about 2 or 3 days. If I like Ziploc up an onion or something like that, 2 or 3 days. You can push it to maybe like 5, but that's when it starts to get kind of weird. But I mean, in reality, it's not really going to do that much. It might just be kind of funky tasting. But tomatoes go really fast. Green peppers go kind of fast when they're open. Onions stay for a long time in the fridge. So those are like the 3 I'm using right now. And so I just try, if you put a tomato in the fridge, I try to use it within 2 days max. But an onion you can really keep for like a week. And then green pepper is kind of like in between, like 5 days or so. And now we can start rolling out our dough here in just a moment. Alright, I gotta move this cutting board so we can get to the dough. Let me just get some of these veggies off of I'm gonna be rolling my dough on a chopping block. This is kind of a bigger area, kind of helps out. And so what I'm actually gonna do is separate these pizza dough things into two separate ones, and I'm gonna be putting these. Actually, I don't have a pizza pan like a circular one, so we're putting on this like giant rectangle or square thing. So I'm gonna be making like two kind of rectangular sized pizzas, if that makes sense, and try to fit them both on there. So that's what I'm gonna be doing with that. All right, and now I'm gonna flour this. Actually, flour the cutting board, which let's see here. And this will keep the dough from sticking to like the board itself. Here we'll take our dough out. And you want to flour your hands before you start working with the dough, just to kind of ensure that you know, the dough doesn't stick. And I kind of knead this as well. And you know, you see the guys kind of flipping their pizzas or spinning it or whatever. That's kind of the idea you want to do, except you can kind of just like do it like this if you want, which just kind of gets it. The idea is to keep it even, but kind of spin it out to some degree. And now I'm going to rip mine in half, about in half here, and keep doing that. But I want mine in like a rectangle, and honestly I'm not the best at like rolling dough, so this might just be like ridiculously stupid looking, but these are kind of going to be mini pizzas. But the key is to keep it even, and that's kind of also very difficult to do, is to keep it even. I'm going to grab my rolling pin, and yeah, like I said, I'm not really good at, oh, I gotta put some more on the top actually. I'm going to grab a little more flour, otherwise it's going to stick. I'm going to try to get it on the rolling pin as well. Work it in there, and work it into the top of the dough. And yeah, the idea I'm going for right now is to kind of get it a rectangle and keep it even. And that's what's important right now. And yeah, I might just embarrass myself here, because I've never tried to make like a rectangular pizza dough thing, and this may prove difficult, honestly. But I'll see what I can do. And our oven's preheated, so we can get to that soon. And right now the edges have a little too much dough, and that's why I'm kind of trying to even it out right now. And it doesn't have to be like, this isn't geometry class cooking. It doesn't have to be a perfect rectangle. It doesn't really matter what the shape is, in all honesty. I'm just trying to make sure that it'll fit on my sheet, and I think it's actually a little too long right now, so I'm trying to retract it a little bit. And I know this looks like, what the hell kind of pizza are you making here? This is actually about the shape that I'm looking for, and I think it's fairly even. So I think we're pretty good on this, in this sense. So I'm going to oil the pan real quick, put it down, and I'm actually going to top it on the pan, because then I can get my other dough out there and not get dough all over the top and stuff like that. So now I just need to oil my pan a little bit. Try to check out chat here. Yeah, they totally taste bad when they're rectangle. The shape directly affects the taste. And so what you can kind of do here is fold it in half, because it's flour, it won't stick, and transfer it like this. And this is what it looks like right now. We got about half the pan covered, and then the other half will go on. And we'll top it when both are on. Now we're going to grab our other thing of dough. I'm gonna try to get this flour a little more well adjusted here. We're gonna kind of do the same thing with this. I think this was actually just a little bit bigger piece of dough, so we'll try to get this, going well. I'm trying to get this kind of rectangular thing going before I start rolling it so that it stays even and rolls into the shape I'm looking for. And if you're trying to get a circle, like a circular pizza dough, you want to kind of cross, like do this, or do it like this, and then like this, make like a plus sign maybe. That's kind of how you get that circular technique. And I obviously am not trying to get that. So I kind of go back and forth a lot, and to keep it even like that, I kind of do this. But I definitely am doing more horizontal rolls than vertical. And you also got to make sure that no parts are too thick in your dough. Like I'm talking about even, but also just thickness, because then it's going to have a hard time cooking. You're going to kind of get a doughy crust, which isn't ideal. And that's also more important when you're doing a no yeast crust. I think it's a little bit harder to cook. Takes a little bit longer, so it's kind of that. I think this is pretty close. It's not quite even, so I'm going to keep doing a little bit of this and that. Try to make it a little more even. I think this is right about what we're looking for here. Now I'm going to put this on the pan. Alright, so now this is what it looks like with our two pizzas in position. And actually one issue I'm realizing right now is that one is, this side has more dough. So it's going to be a little thicker. So I'm trying to actually make this one a little smaller to condense the dough a little more, because they're going to cook unevenly right now. And one of these doughs is going to get cooked very thoroughly, and the other is going to be kind of doughy if I don't take care of that. So I'm trying to consolidate it and reel it in a little bit, make it a little thicker, and therefore I think it'll be a little more even. I think we're pretty good right now in terms of thickness. The pan's oiled so it shouldn't stick, and now I can kind of just crimp up the sides to make kind of that traditional crust being a little higher up than the rest, but it's not really a big deal. Not really too concerned about that, honestly. But I'll do it just a little bit anyway. Okay. And now I'm going to grab our sauce. This is just a pasta sauce. It's not pizza sauce. It's not tomato paste or anything like that. So it's going to be a little more watery than you might be used to. But that's fine. I don't really think it's an issue. I'll show you kind of how I spread it. You just spoon it on. Try to spoon it on as evenly as possible, because it'll make your life a little easier when you're spreading it. And now you just take the flat of your spoon. You have to be gentle to get this right. You have to be gentle. As you can see, this tomato sauce, or this pasta sauce, has little chunks of tomato, and I actually like that on my pizza, so I intended that. But it's got really heavy basil and things of that nature. Some basil, I'm sure there's some garlic powder in here, things like that. Normally you want to season your pasta sauce a lot, or your pizza sauce. That's what pasta sauce is already seasoned. It's not that important. So we've kind of got it, even. You want to make sure that it's a good coat all around. And I do want to make some like harder meals to make for you guys as well, but I think I'm going to ramp into that, you know. I don't want to like start making some crazy stuff. Like I want to make a okonomiyaki, I want to make some masala type things, and those are definitely a lot harder things to make than homemade pizza and calzones. But you know, that's kind of, I want to take you on a journey, not just start at the end kind of thing, if you catch my drift. And if there's any requests you guys have for something like you want me to make, I'd be more than willing to make something like that. And if I don't know how to make it, I can research it. But I know how to make quite a few things, so I would be, you know, happy. And I do try to learn a lot of different like types of cuisine. In like, I know some Japanese, I know Chinese, Mexican or South American, Spanish. I know quite a bit of it, or you know, not quite a bit, but at least some Indian. Indian I actually really like to make. That's what I've been doing more so recently. Now we're going to take our cheese, and traditionally pizza, you know, uses mozzarella cheese. I'm sure everyone's aware, but right now we're going to be just using this. This is like a cheddar jack combination. I actually think it goes really well with the particular ingredients we're using, so that's what I'm showing off right now. And you just want to make sure it's even, you know, a good amount of cheese that'll melt through. And not a whole lot to say about the cheese, you know. It's not like I can really go on this huge rambling tangent about how to put cheese on your pizza. It's pretty self-explanatory. You place the cheese, and it pretty much ends there. So you can pat yourself on the back for that one. And now I'm going to reach in, you know, start topping. Using my toppings here. This is the bowl of toppings we have. And I'm just going to put, you know, a healthy chunk of toppings on here. Usually what you worry about when you're putting on toppings on a pizza is it'll make it take too long to cook. That's not really an issue for us because our dough is going to take a long time to cook. So actually we kind of want a lot of toppings that will make the cheese not melt or not burn, things of that nature. Because our dough is, you know, it's going to take quite a while to cook because it's this no yeast type dough. And so as you can see, we've got a very healthy amount of toppings on our pizzas. And we'll be topping that off with these chunks of pineapple. And that's another thing, when you're putting very watery things in your pizza, like pineapple and tomato, and even green pepper to some extent, and black olive, you worry about it taking too long to cook, and it kind of watering down things. That's actually perfect for us. We want it to take a long time to cook, as I did say before. You know, not to reiterate, but just reinforcing that point that this is something that normally is, you know, not beneficial, which is beneficial to us. So don't just like pile on all these watery vegetables on your pizza and expect it to cook right away under normal circumstances when you're using like a yeast crust or when you're using just like a store-bought skin or something like that. But now these are looking pretty good. So we're going to put this in the oven, cook it for, we're going to look at it in about 10 minutes and then see how we feel. But yeah, we're going to put that on and then I'll have time, a little bit of FaceTime with you guys. I'm going to put a timer on my phone real quick. Alright, I have the timer set to 8 minutes, so I'm going to turn my camera around and sit down and